The champagne flute shattered against the marble floor, spraying golden liquid across Sarah's designer heels. She didn't flinch. Her eyes, cold as December rain, stayed locked on Kwame's face as the entire restaurant fell silent. "You're joking, right?" she said, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. "Tell me this is some sick joke, Kwame." Kwame stood there in his borrowed suit, the one his roommate had lent him for this dinner, feeling every eye in the upscale Seoul restaurant boring into his back. His hands trembled slightly as he placed the small velvet box back into his pocket. The ring inside suddenly felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. "Sarah, please, just sit down. We can talk about this." "Talk about what?" She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "About how you just proposed to me with a ring that probably cost less than my monthly skincare budget. About how you thought I'd actually say yes to a man who can't even afford his own apartment." 3 months earlier, things had been different. Kwame remembered the exact moment he'd met Sarah at the Seoul language exchange meetup in Hongdae. She'd walked in wearing a yellow sundress, her dark skin glowing under the cafe lights. Her Korean so fluent, it had made his intermediate attempts sound like a child's babbling. She was a marketing consultant from Lagos, working in Seoul for a multinational firm. He was a software developer who'd moved from Accra 2 years prior, scraping by on freelance gigs while working on what everyone called his little side project. "Your Korean is terrible," she'd said, sliding into the seat across from him with a playful smile. "Your honesty is brutal," he'd shot back. And she'd laughed, really laughed, and that had been the beginning. For 3 months, Sarah had seemed different from anyone he'd ever known. She was ambitious, driven, and she'd told him repeatedly that she didn't care about money, that she valued authenticity and passion. She'd said she found his dedication to his startup endearing, that watching him code late into the night, surviving on ramyun and coffee, was inspiring. He should have known better. He should have seen the signs. "I love you," Kwame said quietly, aware that the entire restaurant was still watching. "I know things are tight right now, but the app is almost ready. The beta testing results are incredible. I just need a few more months and—" "A few more months?" Sarah's voice rose an octave. "Kwame, I've been waiting. I've been patient. But I'm 32 years old. I need stability. I need a man who can provide, not someone who lives off dreams and instant noodles. You said you believed in me. I believed you'd figure it out by now. I believed you'd get a real job instead of wasting time on an app that no one's ever going to use." She grabbed her Prada bag from the chair. "I can't do this anymore. I deserve better. I deserve someone who's already successful, not someone who might be successful someday." She walked out, her heels clicking against the floor like gunshots. Kwame stood there for a long moment, feeling the weight of every stare, every whispered Korean conversation around him. Finally, he pulled out his wallet, counted what little cash he had, and left it on the table before walking out into the humid Seoul night. His roommate, Min-jun, found him on the rooftop of their apartment building 3 hours later, sitting with his legs dangling over the edge, staring at the neon-lit cityscape. "She said no?" Min-jun asked in Korean, sitting beside him with 2 cans of beer. "She said much more than no," Kwame replied, accepting a can. "She said I'm a failure, that my app is worthless, that I'm worthless." Min-jun was quiet for a moment. They'd been friends since Kwame's first week in Seoul, when he'd gotten hopelessly lost, trying to find his apartment, and Min-jun had guided him home. Despite barely speaking English, Min-jun had become his closest friend, teaching him Korean, introducing him to the best street food spots, and never once complaining about Kwame being late on rent. Your app is not worthless, Minjun said carefully in broken English. I use beta version. My friends use. Very good for language learning and cultural exchange. Better than other apps. Thanks, man. But apparently good isn't good enough. They sat in silence, drinking beer and watching the city breathe below them. Kwame thought about calling his mother back in Accra, but he couldn't bear to hear the disappointment in her voice. She'd warned him about moving to Korea, about chasing dreams in a foreign country, about investing everything into a startup instead of getting a stable job. You know what the worst part is? Kwame said eventually. I actually thought she loved me, like really loved me. Not the potential of what I could be, but me, right now, broke, struggling, living on cup noodles. How stupid was I? Not stupid, hopeful, different thing. The next 6 months were brutal. Kwame threw himself into work, coding 18-hour days, fueled by spite and heartbreak and an overwhelming need to prove Sarah wrong. He saw her occasionally around Seoul, usually in Gangnam, always with someone new. Once, he'd spotted her at a cafe with a man in an expensive suit, laughing at something on his phone. She'd looked up, met Kwame's eyes for a brief second, then looked away as if he were a stranger. It had hurt more than he wanted to admit. But something had shifted in Kwame after that night on the rooftop. The rejection had lit a fire in him that burned hotter than any passion he'd felt before. Every line of code he wrote, every feature he implemented, every bug he fixed, he did it with the memory of Sarah's words echoing in his mind. An app that no one's ever going to use. He'd show her. He'd show everyone. The breakthrough came on a Tuesday morning at 4 a.m. Kwame had been working on the algorithm that matched language learners with native speakers, trying to incorporate cultural context and personality compatibility. Suddenly, it clicked. The solution was so elegant, so simple, he couldn't believe he hadn't seen it before. He tested it immediately. The results were stunning. User engagement jumped by 300%. Retention rates skyrocketed. Learning outcomes improved dramatically. Minjun found him the next evening, laughing and crying simultaneously at his laptop screen. I did it, Kwame said, his voice hoarse from exhaustion. Minjun, I actually did it. This is going to work. This is really going to work. The app launched globally 2 months later. Kwame called it Sunsum, a Twi word meaning spirit or soul, because the app was designed to connect not just languages, but the souls of different cultures. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within the first week, they had 50,000 downloads. Within the first month, 2 million. By month 3, Sunsum was trending in 40 countries. The tech blogs called it revolutionary. Language learning experts praised its innovative approach. Users created entire communities around it. And then the acquisition offers started coming in. First, it was a Korean tech giant offering $20 million. Kwame turned it down. Then a Silicon Valley company offered $50 million. He declined again. He knew what he'd built. He knew its value. The final offer came from a massive international conglomerate that wanted to integrate Sunsum into their global education platform. They offered $1.2 billion. Kwame, sitting in his still modest apartment with Minjun beside him, stared at the number on the screen for a full 5 minutes without speaking. That's a lot of zeros, Minjun finally said in Korean. That's life-changing money, Kwame whispered. What will you do? Kwame thought about his mother in Accra, working as a teacher for 30 years and never earning in her entire lifetime what he was being offered for his app. He thought about Minjun, who'd supported him through everything and never asked for anything in return. He thought about every doubt, every struggle, every night wondering if he was wasting his life chasing an impossible dream. and he thought about Sarah, calling his app worthless. "I'm taking it," he said. The money hit his account on a Friday. By Monday, every major tech publication in Asia had run the story. Ghanaian developer's app sells for over $1 billion. From broke to billionaire, the Sunsum success story. African immigrant creates Korea's biggest tech success of the year. Kwame's phone exploded with messages. Friends he hadn't heard from in years, distant relatives suddenly wanting to reconnect, business opportunities, interview requests, and then, 3 days after the news broke, a message that made his stomach drop. It was from Sarah. "Hey, stranger, long time no talk. Saw the news about your app. I always knew you'd make it big. I'm so proud of you. Are you still in Seoul? Would love to catch up properly. Coffee sometime?" He stared at the message for a long time. Minjun, who'd moved into Kwame's new penthouse apartment as his head of operations, peered over his shoulder and read it. "The woman who dumped you?" "Yeah." "What will you say?" Kwame thought about ignoring it, blocking her, sending a cutting reply. Instead, he typed, "Sure, Café Soro in Itaewon, Saturday at 2. He wasn't sure why he agreed. Curiosity, maybe, or perhaps a need for closure. Or maybe, in some small part of him, he wanted her to see what she'd walked away from. Sarah arrived 15 minutes late, which Kwame realized was deliberate. She wanted to make an entrance, and she did. She wore a white dress that probably cost more than his old monthly rent, her hair styled in elegant braids, her makeup flawless. She looked like success itself, walking through the door. "Kwame," she said, her voice warm with artificial sweetness. "Look at you. You look amazing." He dressed simply, a casual button-down and jeans, but he knew the watch on his wrist cost more than her dress. He'd bought it not because he wanted it, but because he could, because he wanted this one visible sign of how much things had changed. "Sarah, you look well." She sat down across from him, her eyes scanning his face like she was trying to read a map. "I've been following all the news about Sunsum. It's incredible. Truly. You must be so proud." "I am. I always believed in you, you know, even when things were hard." The lie was so blatant it almost made him laugh. "Did you?" "Of course. I saw your potential from the beginning. That's why I was so hard on you back then. I was trying to push you to be better, to reach higher. By calling my app worthless and dumping me in a restaurant?" Her smile faltered slightly. "I never said worthless. You're misremembering. I was just concerned about our future, about stability. Any woman would be." "Right." She reached across the table, placing her hand on his. Her touch, which once would have sent electricity through him, now felt cold and calculating. "Look, I know things ended badly between us. I know I hurt you. But Kwame, we were good together. We understood each other. We both have ambition, drive. We're both Africans making it in Asia. That's rare. That's special." "What exactly are you saying, Sarah?" She smiled, and it was the same smile she'd used when they first met, the one that had made him believe in possibilities. "I'm saying we should try again. I made a mistake. I was scared, and I pushed away something real. But I've grown. I've realized what matters. And what matters is us." Kwame pulled his hand back slowly. "Tell me something. Did you love me? Back then, when I was broke, when I was nobody? Did you actually love me?" "Of course I did. Don't lie. Not now. I deserve at least that much honesty." Sarah's face changed. The sweetness drained away, replaced by something harder, more real. "I cared about you. But love? Kwame, love isn't enough. Love doesn't pay bills. Love doesn't provide security. I needed more than love. And now? Now you can provide everything. Now we can build something real together. A power couple. You with your tech empire, me with my marketing expertise. We could be unstoppable. So, you love my money. I love what we could be together. Don't act like you're above this. You knew what you were doing when you suggested this cafe. When you wore that watch, you wanted me to see. You wanted me to regret leaving. Well, congratulations, I do regret it. So, can we stop playing games and be adults about this? Her honesty, brutal as it was, at least had the virtue of being real. Kwame almost respected it. Almost. I appreciate you being direct, he said. So let me be direct too. The answer is no. No? No, I don't want to try again. I don't want to be a power couple. I don't want anything to do with you. Sarah's eyes narrowed. Because you're still hurt? Come on, Kwame. Don't be childish. This is a business decision as much as a personal one. Together, we could... I don't care what we could do together. You left me when I had nothing. You told me I was worthless. You walked away without looking back. And now you want back in because the situation changed. But here's the thing, Sarah. I didn't change. I'm still the same person who was coding all night, eating ramyun, believing in an impossible dream. The only thing that changed is my bank account. And if you didn't love that person then, I don't want you loving the money now. That's not fair. People change. Priorities shift. You can't hold one bad day against me forever. It wasn't one bad day. It was a revelation. You showed me exactly who you are when things get hard. You bail. You look for something easier, something more comfortable. And that's fine. That's your right. But it's also my right to say no thank you. Sarah stood up, her chair scraping against the floor. Other patrons glanced over. You're making a mistake. You think you'll find someone better? Someone who understands your world? Good luck with that. You're going to end up with some gold digger who wants you for your money, and you'll wish you'd given me a second chance. Maybe. But at least they'll be honest about wanting my money from the start. You're trying to dress it up as something else, and that's worse. She grabbed her bag, her hands shaking slightly. For a moment, Kwame saw something real in her eyes. Not love, but genuine frustration, and maybe a hint of actual regret. I did care about you, she said quietly. For what it's worth, I'm not a complete monster. I just wanted different things. I know. And that's why this would never work. She left without another word. Kwame sat there for a while, staring at his untouched coffee, feeling an odd mixture of triumph and emptiness. He'd imagined this moment countless times during those dark months after the breakup. In his fantasies, he'd been cruel, cutting, devastating. But now that it had actually happened, he mostly just felt tired. His phone buzzed, a message from Minjun. How did it go? Exactly as expected. Want to get Korean barbecue and forget about it? Kwame smiled. Definitely. That evening, sitting in their favorite samgyeopsal restaurant in Mapo, watching Minjun grill meat with the precision of a surgeon, Kwame felt something shift inside him. The weight he'd been carrying since Sarah left, the need to prove himself, the anger and hurt, it started to lift. You know what's funny? Kwame said, accepting a perfectly grilled piece of pork belly. I spent 6 months working myself to death partly to prove her wrong. And now that I've shown her what she walked away from, it doesn't feel how I thought it would. How does it feel? Empty. Like I won a game nobody else was playing. Minjun nodded, pouring soju into their glasses. My grandfather used to say, success is best when it's for yourself, not against someone else. Your grandfather was a wise man. He was a drunk who owed money to half of Busan, But sometimes drunk people say smart things. Kwame laughed, really laughed, for the first time in what felt like forever. They drank and ate and talked about everything except Sarah and money and success. They talked about Min Jun's upcoming wedding to his girlfriend Ji Yoon, about starting a foundation to help immigrant entrepreneurs in Korea, about maybe taking a vacation to Ghana so Min Jun could meet Kwame's mother. "She asks about you constantly," Kwame said. "When am I going to bring my Korean brother home?" "Tell her I'm practicing my Twi. I can now say hello and where's the bathroom?" The two most essential phrases. They stumbled home at midnight, pleasantly drunk, arms around each other's shoulders, singing a terrible mashup of Korean and Ghanaian songs that made absolutely no sense but felt perfect in the moment. The next morning, Kwame woke to another message. For a second, he tensed, thinking it might be Sarah again, but it was from his mother. "My son, I saw the news. I'm so proud of you. But more than the money, I'm proud that you stayed true to yourself, that you didn't give up when things were hard. That's the real success. The rest is just numbers. I love you. Come home soon. And bring Min Jun. I want to meet this boy who helped my son when he had nothing." Kwame read it 3 times, feeling his eyes sting. His mother had a way of cutting through all the noise and getting to what mattered. She was right. The money was just numbers. What mattered was who he'd become in the process of earning it. 3 weeks later, Kwame was at a charity event for immigrant entrepreneurs. He'd started attending these functions, trying to give back to help others avoid the struggles he'd faced. He was listening to a young Nigerian woman pitch her idea for a sustainable fashion app when someone tapped his shoulder. He turned to find a Korean woman about his age, wearing a simple black dress and an apologetic smile. "I'm so sorry to interrupt," she said in fluent English. "But I had to tell you Sunsum changed my life. I'm a Korean language teacher, and I use it with all my students. The cultural integration features are genius." "Thank you. That means a lot. I'm Yuna, by the way. I actually helped with some of the Korean language verification during your beta testing. I don't know if you remember." He did, vaguely. She'd been one of the volunteer native speakers who'd helped ensure the Korean content was natural and accurate. They'd exchanged maybe a dozen emails, all professional and brief. "I remember. Your feedback was incredibly helpful." They talked for a while about the app, about language learning, about the challenges of cultural exchange. She was intelligent and passionate, and had this way of listening that made him feel actually heard, not just tolerated. When she laughed at his jokes, it seemed genuine. When she disagreed with something he said, she did it thoughtfully, with reasoning, not dismissiveness. At the end of the night, she handed him her card. "If you ever want to discuss expanding Sunsum's Korean content, or if you just want to get coffee and talk about something other than work, let me know." He looked at the card. Yuna Kim, Korean language educator. "I'd like that," he said. "The coffee part, I mean. How about Saturday?" She smiled. "Saturday works." This time, he didn't suggest a fancy cafe in Itaewon. He suggested a small hole-in-the-wall coffee shop in Mangwon-dong that he'd discovered during his broke days, where the coffee was good and cheap, and the owner knew him by name. Yuna showed up in jeans and a sweater, no designer clothes, no elaborate makeup. They talked for 4 hours about everything and nothing. She told him about growing up in Busan, about her dream of opening a language school that focused on cultural understanding, not just grammar. He told her about Ghana, about his mother, about the terrifying and exhilarating experience of building something from nothing in a foreign country. "Did you always know it would work?" she asked. "The app, I mean." "Honestly, no. There were days I thought I was completely delusional. Days I almost gave up and took a regular job. What stopped you? He thought about saying spite, about mentioning Sarah, about explaining how rejection had fueled him, but looking at Yuna, at her open, curious expression, he realized that wasn't the whole truth. I believed in what I was building, he said. Not because I thought it would make me rich, but because I believed it could help people connect across cultures in a real way. The money was a nice surprise, but it was never the point. That's rare. Most people I meet in Seoul are chasing success like it's the only thing that matters. I used to date someone like that. What happened? She dumped me when I was broke, came back when I wasn't. Ouch. What did you do? Said no. Yuna nodded approvingly. Good. You deserve someone who values you for you, not your bank account. They saw each other again the next week, and the week after that. Kwame found himself looking forward to their conversations, to her perspective on things, to the way she challenged him without being cruel, supported him without being sycophantic. She treated him exactly the same as she had during the beta testing, before the money, before the fame. To her, he was just Kwame, the guy who'd built a cool app and sometimes told terrible jokes. Minjun noticed the change in him. You seem happy, he said one evening as they reviewed plans for the foundation. I am. It's the teacher, isn't it? Yuna? Maybe. She's good for you. She doesn't care about the money. How do you know? Because Jiun and I had coffee with her last week. She spent the whole time asking about our wedding plans and talking about her students. She mentioned you exactly once, and it was to say you'd recommended a good Korean barbecue place. If she was after your money, she'd be trying to impress your friends, not asking my fiancé for kimchi recipe recommendations. Kwame smiled. You vetted her? Of course. Someone has to make sure you don't get hurt again. Thanks, man. That's what Korean brothers are for. 6 months into dating Yuna, Kwame knew. This was different. This was real. She'd seen his penthouse exactly twice, and both times she'd seemed more interested in the view than the luxury. She'd met his mother via video call, and they'd talked for an hour about teaching methodologies while he sat there, bemused and delighted. She'd helped him plan the foundation's curriculum and refused to take payment for her time. I'm doing it because I believe in it, she'd said. Not everything needs to be transactional. One evening, after a particularly long day of foundation work, they were sitting on his apartment balcony, watching the Seoul skyline light up like a galaxy. Can I ask you something? Yuna said. Anything. Do you ever worry that people only like you for your money? Every day. How do you deal with it? I pay attention to how they act when they think I'm not watching, to what they talk about, to whether they want to be seen with me or actually be with me. He looked at her. Why do you ask? Because I worry you might think that about me sometimes. That maybe you wonder if I'm just another Sarah, waiting for the right moment to show my true colors. I don't think that. But you did once, right? At the beginning? He couldn't lie to her. Maybe for a minute, but then you argued with me about the correct way to make jollof rice, and I realized you were too stubborn to be fake. She laughed. I stand by my position. Korean rice cooker jollof is superior. That's heresy, and you know it. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Yuna said, For what it's worth, I liked you during beta testing, when you were just some stressed-out developer sending panicked emails at 3 a.m. about Korean grammar particles. I thought you were smart and passionate and kind of adorable in your dedication. The money thing is just noise. Kind of adorable? Very adorable. But don't let it go to your head. A year after selling Sunsum, Kwame stood in front of a room full of aspiring immigrant entrepreneurs at the foundation's first major event. He told them his story, the whole thing, including the parts about failure and doubt, and a girlfriend who'd left him at his lowest point. Success isn't a straight line, he said. It's messy and painful and filled with people who'll tell you you're wasting your time. Some of those people will be strangers. Some will be people you love. And that's going to hurt. But the question you have to ask yourself is this: are you building something because you believe in it, or because you want to prove someone wrong? Because one of those will sustain you through the hard times, and the other will leave you empty even when you win. After his speech, a young woman from Ethiopia approached him. "The girlfriend who dumped you," she said. "Did she ever apologize?" "She tried to get back together. I said no." "Do you regret it?" "Not even for a second." "Good. She didn't deserve you." That evening, Kwame took Yuna to the same rooftop where Minjun had found him the night Sarah left. The city sprawled below them, alive and electric. "This is where I almost gave up," he told her. "Right here. I sat on this ledge and thought about quitting everything, going home, getting a normal job, forgetting about dreams and apps and success." "What changed your mind?" "Minjun showed up with beer and told me my app wasn't worthless. And I realized I had at least one person who believed in me. That was enough. And now? Now I have more than I ever imagined. A successful business, a foundation helping others, a Korean brother who's about to make me best man at his wedding, a girlfriend who argues with me about rice preparation methods, a mother who's proud of me. It's more than enough. It's everything." Yuna leaned her head on his shoulder. "You know what I love about your story?" "What?" "It's not really about the money or the success or the ex-girlfriend who came crawling back. It's about you figuring out who you are and what matters. The rest is just details." "When did you get so wise?" "I'm a teacher. We're all secretly philosophers who work for terrible pay." He kissed her then, with the Seoul skyline glittering around them, and felt something he hadn't felt in years. Complete. Not because he had money or success or revenge on an ex-girlfriend, but because he'd found people who valued him for exactly who he was. His phone buzzed. He ignored it at first, but it kept buzzing. Finally, he checked. Multiple messages from Minjun, all variations of, "Turn on the news." He pulled up a Korean news site on his phone. The headline made him freeze. "Sarah Okonkwo, marketing executive, arrested for embezzlement." The article detailed how Sarah had been stealing from her company for over a year, funneling money into fake consulting contracts. The investigation had started months ago, but the arrest had just been made. The charges could mean years in prison. "Oh no," Yuna said, reading over his shoulder. Kwame felt a complicated surge of emotions. Not satisfaction exactly, but not sympathy either. Just a kind of sad inevitability, like watching a train you'd warned someone about finally arrive. "I should feel something," he said, "but I mostly just feel nothing." "That's healthy. She's not your responsibility anymore." "I know, it's just sad. She was so focused on money and success and taking shortcuts, and now look where it got her." They stood there for a while, processing. Then Yuna said, "You could have been caught up in that. If you'd stayed together, if you'd said yes when she wanted back in, you'd be dealing with this mess now." "I know. The universe has a funny way of protecting us from our worst choices sometimes. Or maybe I just finally learned to recognize my worth, to know I deserve someone who loves me when I have nothing, not just when I have everything." Yuna smiled. "That was almost poetic. Very unlike you." I'm full of surprises. Good. Keep surprising me. 2 years later, Kwame stood in his mother's backyard in Accra, sweating in the Ghanaian heat, watching Yuna laugh with his aunties as they tried to teach her the traditional wedding dance. She was terrible at it, completely off rhythm, but she was trying so hard that everyone loved her anyway. Minjun and Ji-yoon sat under a canopy, fanning themselves and looking overwhelmed by the chaos and noise and joy of a Ghanaian wedding celebration. "This is insane," Minjun said in Korean. "How many people are here?" "I stopped counting at 300, Kwame replied. "And they're all related to you?" "Some of them. The rest heard there was free food and just showed up. That's how we do it here." His mother approached, resplendent in her kente cloth, tears streaming down her face. "My son, you're really getting married?" "I am. To a good woman, a woman who loves you for you." "I know, Mama. I prayed for this. After that other girl broke your heart, I prayed you would find someone real, someone with a good soul. Yuna's the best thing that ever happened to me." "Better than the $1 billion?" He watched Yuna finally get the dance steps right, her face lighting up with triumph as his aunties cheered. "Much better than the $1 billion. The ceremony was a fusion of Ghanaian and Korean traditions that made absolutely no cultural sense but felt perfect anyway. They exchanged rings and bowed to both sets of parents and jumped the broom and drank from the same cup. It was chaotic and beautiful and exactly what it should be." At the reception, during his speech, Kwame looked out at the crowd of faces, family, and friends from 2 continents, people who'd supported him through everything. "I used to think success was about proving people wrong," he said. "About showing the people who doubted me that they'd made a mistake. But I learned something important. Real success isn't about revenge or validation or being right. It's about finding people who celebrate you at your worst and your best. It's about building something you believe in, not for applause, but because it matters to you. It's about loving and being loved for who you actually are, not who you might become." He looked at Yuna, radiant in her fusion of Korean hanbok and Ghanaian kente. "I got rich because I built something people needed, but I got happy because I found someone who needed me exactly as I am. And that's worth more than any amount of money." The crowd erupted in cheers. Minjun stood up, raising his glass. "To Kwame and Yuna, may their love be as strong as Kwame's coffee and as sweet as Yuna's patience. And may they never argue about jollof rice at family dinners," Ji-yoon added, to roars of laughter. Later, as the party wound down and the stars came out over Accra, Kwame and Yuna slipped away to the quiet of his mother's garden. The sounds of celebration echoed behind them, but here it was peaceful. "No regrets?" Yuna asked. "About what?" "About Sarah, about saying no when she wanted you back. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you'd given her another chance?" Kwame thought about it seriously. "I know what would have happened. I'd be with someone who loved my success, not my soul. Someone who'd leave again the moment things got hard. I'd have money and status, and I'd be completely empty inside. And now? Now I have everything that matters. A wife who argues with me about rice, a business partner who's like a brother, a mother who's proud of me for the right reasons, a foundation helping people chase their dreams. This is real success. This is everything I never knew I needed." Yuna kissed him softly. "Good answer. I've been practicing. I can tell." They stood there in the garden, 2 people from different worlds who'd found each other in the chaos of Seoul, built a life on honesty and real love, and proved that sometimes the best revenge is not revenge at all, but building something so genuine that the past becomes irrelevant. Somewhere in Seoul, in a jail cell, Sarah probably thought about the choices she'd made, the man she'd underestimated, the life she could have had. But Kwame didn't think about her anymore. She was a chapter in his story, not the story itself. His story was about resilience and friendship and finding love in unexpected places. It was about a boy from Accra who dared to dream in a foreign city, who failed and got back up, who built something meaningful. It was about learning that your worth isn't determined by your bank account or who wants you when you're successful, but by who you are when no one's watching, when you have nothing to prove, when you're just being yourself. And in the end, that was the only story that mattered. If this story touched you, drop a comment below and hit subscribe for more real stories about resilience and worth. Don't forget to like if you believe true love sees you at your worst, not just your best.